Welcome back to the Done Deal Show. We are talking Rodrygo to Arsenal. The big push from the Gunners has begun. We're looking at Man United's pursuit of a goalkeeper in Lammens. And could the Baleba deal be back on, with massive links coming from Saudi Arabia of a huge £100 million bid, a second bid of the summer for Bruno Fernandes? Plus, we're looking at Donnarumma, who has agreed personal terms with Manchester City, and Spurs promised to bid €80 million for the winger from Man City, Savio. We're delving into all that and much, much more on the Done Deal Show this morning. Let's do it. Morning, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Get that like button hit for us right now, please. Get it done right now. Get it liked. Get it subbed. A lot of you subscribe. It's absolutely brilliant. We still have something like 35-40% of our viewers don't subscribe, and loads of you, about 70% of you, don't have the bell notification button turned on properly. Some of you have it turned on, but you don't have notifications on your phone for YouTube set up and ready to go. So if you could be so kind as to get that done, that would be absolutely amazing. It truly, truly would. Loads to talk about this morning, loads to go through today, loads of fan theory, loads of opinions, and we're going to go through what's actually being said by the journalists, the likelihood of some of these deals happening. Let me just turn the fan on in my room a second, because it's a little bit warm. It's a little bit hot. Just want a little bit of a breeze. Just want a little bit of a summer breeze. Where's that song from? I don't know. There's a song that mentions the word summer breeze, and I don't know where, but it exists. But there we go. But good morning, everybody. Hope everyone is well. Hope everybody is good. And you want to get yourselves over to Terry Fluer's TV in about an hour or so. I'm dropping a big video. You're going to love it. I know you're going to love it because you like a lot of our content, but make sure you're getting yourselves over there to that this morning. Is it from Greece? Summer breeze. Yes, it is. I don't know the words, but yeah, I know there was a song somewhere. It's in the back of my mind somewhere. Someone says Greece. Great movie, that. Great movie with a family. You know what I mean? Sit down and give it a watch. Look, I'm going to start off with Arsenal this morning. We're going to get into Bruno. We're going to get into Baleba. We're going to get into Lammens. We're going to speak Donnarumma. All coming up on the show. So don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Grab yourself a cup of tea, a lovely cup of cha this morning, whatever it is you're doing. Get ready. It's going to be a good show. It really is. I'm looking forward to getting your opinions as well. We'll be sharing the link to the show as well a little bit later on for you all. Terry, how many people have the bell notification button turned on? I mean, it's thousands of you, tens of thousands of you, but I just need more of you to get it done. I need more of you to do it. That way, our streams will do better. You'll be notified more, and everyone's a winner. Thank you, Luke, for encouraging everybody to hit that like button for us this morning as well. It's a really important component for the community to do as well. But I want to delve into the Arsenal news regarding Rodrygo. And a lot of this is fan theory. A lot of this is, well, Saka looks like he's out. There's reports that it could be a tear, a grade 1, grade 2 tear on the left hamstring. It's grade 2, you're looking up to sort of 6 weeks out. If it's grade 3, that is where you are looking at 4 to 5 months. Fingers crossed for Bukayo Saka, it isn't a long-term injury. To have both hamstrings have grade 3 tears in the space of 6 months, 7 months of football is obviously not good for a player in the long term, even in the modern day world with modern day medicine. So very, very important. I hope that he's okay. But this led to a lot of Arsenal fans last night. We've got to go now and get Rodrygo. We've got to move for Rodrygo. If Saka's going to be out for months, let's see how long Odegaard's out for. Could that be a strain? Is it a slight dislocation? Has he done ligament damage? Is he going to be out for months at a time? I get that Waneri, he definitely beefed up over the course of the summer, put on some muscle and size. And Dalman looked amazing when he came on for the Gunners yesterday. But what I think is really important to remember is they're still kids. And there have been a handful of young players at 15, 16, 17, Ryan Giggs and Wayne Rooney. Obviously, Yamal is currently doing it. But these young players are rarities. These young players are anomalies. These young players are not the norm. So I think putting all the pressure of replacing Saka and Odegaard for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months, up till Christmas, however long these injuries are, coupled with Kai Havertz being out, still no, as far as I'm aware, no prognosis on how long until he's back. Jesus is out as well. Norgard being out, that might only be minor. With all the other injuries, I think it's a lot of pressure to put on them. I think Arsenal should explore the market. I think Arsenal should go back in. Will it be Rodrygo? Well, look, let's break down the news in the last 48 to 72 hours surrounding this. What you have seen is such a combination of stories. So there are some reports coming from Spain that state Rodrygo wants to fight and Rodrygo wants to stay. But this man is getting no minutes. And there is now a threat that he will not be part of the Brazil squad for the summer 2026 World Cup without regular game time. It is reported that he may not even get called up into this next set of international friendlies. He may not make the squad. That is even more damning when you consider that Carlo Ancelotti, his previous manager of Real Madrid, is now the head coach of the Brazilian national team. That's a bad indictment. I think there is room to get this deal done. Now, I'm not saying Arsenal will. I think that City are going to look, and we're going to get into the Savinho deal in a moment. And there could also be a chance here for Arsenal to hurt and to stop their biggest rivals, or biggest local rival anyway, in Spurs as well. But City are certainly looking at Rodrygo. On top of that, we know that Liverpool hold an interest as well. The agent of the player, it has been widely reported, has been in the UK this last week and is looking to, whether he's looking to engineer a move or whether he's trying to get his ducks in a row, he's doing it. But this should be one that Arsenal are active in. And I don't want to put negative energy out into the world. But I think there is something here that Arsenal need to do. Arsenal need to look at Saka and they need to be very, very careful. This could be a very minor strain on the hamstring, 2 or 3 weeks rest, international break goes by, comes back, has no more problems. This could be a grade 3 tear though, and then you're looking at both hamstrings having been massacred by injury in the space of 6 months. Are you going to get the same explosive Bukayo Saka back? Maybe you will. At the same time, is it worthwhile exploring a player who is in and around the same level? Some will say better, some will say not as good, some will say more experienced. Yes, he plays on the opposite side, but can also cover on the left. Is it worthwhile looking at a loan with an option to buy or a loan with an obligation to buy at this point to mitigate any risk there? Now, in the ideal world, Saka makes a full recovery, no long-standing issues, and you've got both of them in your team. Hallelujah, amazing. Eze in the middle, and then you've got the Wanneries and the Dalmans as the backups being bled in this season. That's utopia. I understand it. But I also think you have to think longer term as well. You have to start looking at the injuries that players pick up. Some turn it round and don't have them again. Others, they can start getting Michael Owen. As soon as his hamstring, he's a bit younger than Saka, but once his hamstring started going, it was a steady spiraling problem. Fernando Torres was another. And I think that Arsenal shouldn't be sitting there going, oh, he's done now, he's finished, let's put him on the scrap heap. I'm not suggesting that for a single second. We're grown-ups here on the Football Terrace most of the time. Not always. Sometimes we lose our heads as well. But I think they've got to look at this. Do I see Rodrygo going to Arsenal? My personal view is no. I don't personally think the deal will happen. But I think it's something Arsenal need to look at. I think there's also Lookman. I believe there's also... someone just said, what about Lookman? I think Lookman is someone that they should be looking at. There was another player that was on my mind as well. Somebody suggested it in the chat. Malik Fofana, not as experienced, plays on the left-hand side. I think could be another option for Arsenal. But I think in the next couple of days, they're going to get this test result back. If it's a grade 1 and he's out for a couple of weeks, I still think look at a Malik Fofana. If this is a bad injury and he's going to miss months and months of football, and it's going to be a couple of months of rehab after that, so you're talking 3 to 4 to 5 months of Saka not being at his best, I think Arsenal need to explore the market again and need to look at a star, need to look at a game changer and another needle mover in the team. Yes, this summer has given Arsenal, I think, a much stronger bench and much stronger backup than we saw last year. But if they lose a couple of those players long term early in the season, you're essentially almost in the same place you were last year. You've just got that new very good player like Eze, and you don't have a backup because they're out injured. And there is time to mitigate that, and there is time to rescue that. Maybe you do sell another fringe player or two, but I think it's something that Arsenal need to look at personally. What about Savinho, Terry? Look, Savinho just signed a new deal. I don't think that could happen. Matoma would be a good... Again, I think, maybe not. Maybe. I like Matoma. I think there's a real player in Matoma. I really, really do. Ola here says, Rodrygo is coming to Anfield. We will get Isak over the line. Then we shall know if we can buy Rodrygo or loan with an option to buy Isak, Gahey, and Rodri. Look, I wouldn't be shocked if Liverpool made a move. I wouldn't be shocked if Liverpool ended up getting that deal done. It wouldn't shock me in any capacity personally. What I really am interested in is City in this argument, though. And I believe the City situation is also interconnected with another story this morning. And the story that I want to speak to you about now as well. And that is in relation to Savinho or Savio of Manchester City. Because it is reported here, and I'm going to read this to you, that Tottenham are preparing to make an extra effort to sign Savinho with a club record bid. These are reports coming across the continent this morning. There's also a report here that I want to read to you. And I had it on my screen earlier, and it seems to have disappeared. Here, that is not the one. Here it is. This is from Ben Jacobs, who says, and let me just bookmark it and open it on this screen. Saves me turning my head so far around. Getting old. Got a sore neck, my people. I've got my bookmarks here because I want to read this thoroughly. It says here that Tottenham are still trying to sign Savinho following talks over the weekend. Spurs are willing to pay over 70 million euros. City want 80 million plus euros to consider their position. Manchester City have blocked the move all summer, as they believe even a big sale could be a mistake due to the high ceiling that the player has. My personal view is this: if Man City can get a deal for a Rodrygo done, I think they sanction the sale of Savinho. I think they would get it done. I don't personally believe this is about... I don't think this is about City not... I get there's a point they don't want to let him go because they think he's very good. But I believe if they can replace him with what they believe to be a better player, I think we all agree that Rodrygo is a better footballer, has more experience, and has just as high a ceiling in most people's eyes as Savinho. If they can get the replacement lined up, I think they would do the deal. The problem that you have is getting it done. And that's why, as much as I see Arsenal fans last night saying, well, if Saka's out, let's go and get Rodrygo, I don't know if it's plausible. I don't know if it's achievable. I don't know if it's doable. As a Man United fan, I don't want to see any of you motherfuckers sign him, right? And I want to see none of you mofos get him because he's such a good and such a talented player. But that being said, what an amazing signing he would be for the Premier League. Guardiola is finished. Trust me, guys, is what Rango says here. There's a lot of pressure on him at the moment. There really, really is. He really, really is. This here says, if Liverpool miss out on Gahey, that's a big chance for the rest of the league to exploit their shaky defense. Listen, I agree if they don't get another centre back. I mean, it's also, they could be in trouble if they pick up some injuries. They've left themselves vulnerable if they don't fill that position. I think you're absolutely spot on when you say that. Mo here says, if we are going for another winger, it's Rodrygo. We are the only team that I've seen publicly speak to his camp months ago during the Club World Cup. Same reason we got Eze so quickly. Yeah, I think doing the groundwork is a real important component. I really, really do. Really, really important component to get done. Big up Terry and the chat. Hey, Terry, have you seen the Sol Campbell welcome video to Eze? No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any of that. I'll try and find it later and have a look. I assume it's funny. And I already know what it's going to say without seeing it, but I'll go and watch it. Arsenal have held preliminary talks with Rodrygo's camp. That was on the 3rd of July. Listen, they probably had done some groundwork. And I think that one of the reasons why nobody, including Arsenal, has really made solid move yet for the player is because I think it's because he is, and I want to make sure I say this in the right way. I think it's due to the fact that he is still pushing to stay where he is. He still wants to be a Real Madrid player. So I don't think the player has pushed for that move as of yet. However, the closer we get to this deadline day, if he gets no minutes again, I assume they're playing today. If he gets no minutes again today, that could end up being a game changer for the whole situation. Because he may then look at it and say, do you know what? That's 2 league games into the season. That's no minutes yet this season. That's not good enough for a player like him. And I think from that point of view, he is going to have to be very careful with his career. But wouldn't that be, again, not for me as a Man United fan, but just from a football perspective, imagine a 3-horse race to sign Rodrygo in the last week of the transfer window. That would just be sensational. Kurt here says, Ornstein also said we were not close to signing anyone. Then 3 hours later, we get Eze. So you never know. This is also true. This is why I take what the journalists say seriously, and I have an opinion based on, what they say, what they ask for. But there's always a chance these deals are being worked on. Most of the summer, and we're going to go into a Man United story now because it segues very, very well. But most of this summer, it has been said and it has been discussed that Man United don't want a new goalkeeper, that we're not really prioritizing one, don't expect one. Yet we tried to loan Emi Martinez. We made inquiries into Donnarumma, and we're now agreed personal terms with Lammens, and we have almost agreed a fee with his club. He will not be playing, according to reports, in Belgium. He will not be playing for Antwerp today as Manchester United push in. There's been some late bids from Galatasaray. There's been some bids from some Serie A teams that he has said no to. He wants Manchester United. But it's been very well documented all summer that United are happy with their goalkeepers. It was only 3 weeks ago that every time Rasmus Højlund conversation was brought up, it was the player doesn't want to leave. Amorim was really liking him. There was a few reports that said he could leave. But the second Šeško signed, the world changed. So I think, again, I take what journalists say seriously, but what they will often do is say, well, that's not what the club are telling you. You've got to listen to what journalists say. That is not what the club is telling us. That is not what the player's agent is telling us. And sometimes it's about playing these things down. Sometimes you don't want to make too much noise and too much of a fanfare. Sometimes certain deals are easy to get done when you catch people off guard and you do put a big money bid in. So, yeah, look, I think Arsenal have a chance. I think City have a chance. I think Liverpool have a chance. I think City are the most likely if they allow Savinho to go. Because I think City will just go in absolutely big. I think they're going to go in big. But what City also need to do, I mean, it's been reported today by Fabrizio that Donnarumma has agreed personal terms with Manchester City and is keen on the move. Negotiations are underway between City and PSG. The fee will be under the initial 50 million euros requested. And I think that's also significant because I feel that is maybe a deal that is needed maybe more than bringing in Rodrygo at Manchester City, because James Trafford is nowhere near good enough. If James Trafford is the number one at Man City this season, they will finish 5th or 6th. He will cost them so many points. It's unbelievable. The defense is already looking shaky. With a goalkeeper like that, the defense gets worse because everybody becomes more nervous. Where when you had Ederson in goal, if Donnarumma comes in and goes in goal, there's suddenly this security of even if we get breached, the goalie's going to save it. That means defenders can relax. And I don't mean relax as in not do their job properly. They can relax in doing their job. And generally in life, when you're working hard, but you're relaxed, if you mix that, if you're able to mix relaxation, staying calm, being collected, whilst working your backside off, you'll always deliver in life. If you start becoming a little desperate, a little nervous, second guessing yourself, that is when you let balls bounce. That is when you get caught out of position. That's when you overcompensate in tackles. That is when you give away silly fouls. You start doing that regularly as a defense, partly because you've got a dodgy goalkeeper. You ain't winning no league. You might not even finish inside the top 4. You know, they've got the goals to win themselves games, but do they have the goalkeeper in the defense to win the title? I don't know. Oh, I don't think so. I don't believe so. And I had a few people yesterday said, Terry, I can't believe you're writing City off already. I didn't write City off. That's your inability to understand the words that came out of my mouth. I said they are finished. They're in crisis if Pep doesn't sort that back line out. And I also contextualized the crisis, which is in the situation of chasing a league title. I didn't say they come 8th. I didn't say they come 10th or they fall off or the worst season ever imaginable. But if City come 3rd this year, but they're nowhere near a title race, that's disaster. So, you can't treat all clubs as a monolith. City coming 3rd and not being in a title race is a bigger disaster than Man United coming 6th this season. In the context of where the squads are, where the clubs are, that's horrendous. That's worse for City than it is for us. Ours is progression. We'd be moving in the right direction. They'd be falling away further. They'd have 2 seasons on the bounce with one of the greatest squads ever assembled, one of the greatest managers of all time, 2 years running. No league title push. That's disastrous. It really is. In the context of the last couple of seasons, where Man United are in the overall scheme of things is much worse than City being in that situation. But you don't judge each individual season based on where a club should be. Otherwise, Nottingham Forest last season was disastrous because where they used to be was one of the best teams in the world winning European trophies. But there comes a point where you contextualize differently. So Fraser here says Pep is done, Terry. That is coming from a Man City fan. I wouldn't necessarily say he's done. I think saying he's done is maybe a little bit too extravagant at this point. Players like Donnarumma will certainly help that situation. Terry, what is this about Baleba? Look, I'll tell you what this is about Baleba. And you'll understand what this is. And I'm going to say it now because I want to timestamp this as well so people can find it and come to it and go through it with a little bit more ease. There was a report last night that Bruno Fernandes is subject to another bid from the Saudi League from I'm going to butcher the name. Is it Al-Ittihad? There is talk that they may come back in for him. Now, that all being said, it's been reported this morning that there's an appreciation for him, but nothing is formalizing. Nothing is formally developing at the moment. So Ben Jacobs is very mindful when he said at the moment. So it could, but it isn't right now. Their current focus is Porto's Rodrygo Mora. Bruno's position is that he wants to stay for at least another year. So we all saw the stories last night, and there was multiple stories last night from Saudi Arabia, some from other parts and regions of the Middle East. Indy Kalal, also Kalia, put out a post saying that there's been a formal bid received. No, a bid received. It didn't say formal or informal, but it said a bid has been received. The bid between 90 to 100 million. And he said the interesting part is Man United are leaving the decision entirely up to Bruno Fernandes, which I do and I don't believe. Maybe we are, but that's because we have no choice to. For me, when I read this story last night, I had a lot of people in my DMs, and I'm sure it's in the comment section right now. If I look at the comments, which I will do. Rasmus wants to stay as well. Yeah, I know Rasmus wants to stay, but I don't think he will. From my point of view and perspective, the reason why I put Baleba in my title today, and you can tell by the emoji, it's like a worried face, is Baleba is probably the only way I would do this deal. Maybe Adam Wharton, but I'd say more so Baleba. If Man United are going to sanction, even if Bruno says I want to go, at this stage of the window, we can only allow it if we can bring in a top-class replacement. So we would have to go right. So let's say this morning, Bruno walks into the office, actually tomorrow morning after the game, hopefully after a win, Bruno walks into the manager's office and says, boss, they offered me 500 grand a week, tax-free in the summer. They've come back now and offered me £700,000 a week. I spoke to the family. This money is just so big. We just can't say no. I wanted to do one more year because it keeps coming out. He wants to do at least one more year. So that means he's already considering and thinking about his future. But if he walks into that dressing room and says, I'm sort of done, I can't afford to turn this down. Anything can happen in the next 12 months. Could break my leg, could do my knee. Saudi may focus elsewhere. It's beyond astronomical money, and we're going to do it. I think the only way Man United can sanction it at that point is if and Adam Wharton would be a very good player from a distribution point of view, good creator, breaks lines very well. And for our new attacking line, I think that's key. But I look at Baleba as being more what we need in the middle, especially from a dynamic perspective, from a physical perspective. Very good on the ball, very press resistant, but we need that energy in the middle. So the only way I would sanction this deal, or the only way I would be comfortable with this as a fan at this stage, is if we could get that bid lined up, if we could get that deal lined up. And I also think if this is true, if these stories from Saudi are that it's going to formalize and it's going to become more serious in the next 10, well, 7 days, actually, less than that, so 7-8 days, then from my perspective, we have to be able to bring in somebody like a Baleba. That's the only way. It's the only way that I would look at this and go, I'm comfortable. You can't have Bruno leave and not have a quality replacement. You lose too much output. Yes, he isn't great in the 8 and he will make mistakes. I'm not going to deny that. But again, the opening weekend of the Premier League, nobody created in the whole league more. He did more things to create shots and he created more chances than anybody else. If you're going to remove that from your team, you've got to improve another area of your team dramatically or replace those numbers. You've got to do one of those two things. So for me, it would have to be a move for somebody like a Baleba. And I can't see that happening either. I just can't see Brighton now accepting it. The only way they would is if we got 90 million, 100 million in for Bruno, if we get the 30, 40, 50 million in for Garnacho, and we knocked on their door and said, there's 110 million plus 20 million in add-ons today, cash up front, because we're getting cash up front. Can we do a deal? That'd be the only way. That could turn their heads. Because at the end of the day, they are a selling club. I know they've said we want to wait until next summer because we believe his value is going to go up. I think what United would have to do is bid an amount that people expect the valuation to be next summer. And they've said they want similar to the Caicedo money. So offer more than the Caicedo. That's the only way I can see it happening. And by the way, I don't think that will happen. I'm just putting it out there that it would take something astronomical to get that done. It would take something astronomical to get that over the line, in my personal view. So, yeah, I look at this and I think to myself, we're going to get a goalkeeper. I'm not sure what we're going to do in the midfield. But I think Bruno stays and I think Baleba happens. But I wanted to speak about it with you all today. I want to give you guys a chance to have your say and give your opinions on this as well, because I think it's an important subject. And Malik here says, not Bruno's biggest fan, but would only let him go if United bring in Baleba or Wharton. Yeah, I'm similar to you, bro. I mean, I'm a bigger fan of Bruno than you, but I think we both, I think even if you're not Bruno's biggest fan, even people that despise him, I'm not saying that's you, Malik, but most people can see what he brings. Most people can understand that there would be a hole in the team without him, partly leadership, but there's numbers. And I think that we do have players in the team that could pick those numbers up, but you're going to need to add a new dynamic to the team, and the replacement would have to be massive, and it's very, very late in the window. But it's late deals to happen in the window if they're astronomical, because it turns people's heads. Ola here says Pep blocked the move as he knows Rodrygo prefers Liverpool. The move ain't blocked. That's why Spurs are going back. They blocked it because it weren't enough money. Old Trafford TV here says Bruno already earns a lot of money. We are not Newcastle. We look after our players. He does earn a lot of money, but I think it's documented enough that we're probably going to only have Bruno good, bad, or indifferent for another year, and then he's going to go anyway. So I think that if the Bruno was to now push for this, if Bruno got an offer that he could not refuse, it would change everything. 130 million is way too much. United should keep their dignity and walk away. I wouldn't necessarily say dignity. I mean, Don makes a really good. He does make a good point that they overpaid for Caicedo, but then in the next breath says no DM should be that amount of money. He says we overpaid, but then equally they couldn't be without him. And I sort of look at it, and I remember once I was doing this course on how to sell home insurance when I was younger. And this was in the day where there wasn't as many regulations and rules. But this guy that worked there, he said, this was my technique when I used to sell it. And I was like, okay. And do this, just follow this exercise with me. He goes, when you're selling it to somebody nobody needs home insurance until they need home insurance, right? But he was essentially saying, imagine all your belongings sitting out the front of your house and they're all burnt and smoke damaged and ruined. Everything you own, every piece of clothing, TV screen, beds. There's obviously the sentimental value of items as well. But if you add up the hi-fis, the cookers, the fridges, you go to the fixtures and the fittings in your house, your dining table, your chairs, all your basins, your bathtub, your shower, all your piping, all your copper piping, your soil piping's done, your roof has burned out. You keep going through that again and again and again. He named it. He goes, you just keep naming it, and you pile it outside someone's house, and then say to them, as of today, how much would you spend? How much would you spend to get all those items back? He said that when he was selling it, customers would say things like, I'd pay 10 grand, I'd pay 50 grand, I pay this, I pay that. And then he would show them what the premium on their home insurance was. This was many years ago, so it was cheaper. And it would be a case of their premium on their home insurance was like £14 per month. And then he kind of worked, he'd sit there and go, and this is what you do. You build that image of what they would spend to get all their items back if that happened. And then you go, well, your premium's £14 a month. This is, even if we put it up to, I don't know what today's rates are, let's say it's £35 a month. You'd go, well, you do that over a year, that's 400 quid. So £400 a year. If you're willing to pay 40 grand to get all your items back, 40 grand divided by £420 per year, that's 95 years. It would take you 95 years of paying that for you to pay 45,000. You're not going to, at my age, I'm not living 95 years. So he would work it out and you go, oh, it makes a lot of sense. And then people would realize it's worth spending 20, 30 pound a month protecting my belongings, because if they ever disappeared, one, it would cost you so much more money to replace them. And two, you'd be willing to pay a lot of cash to get it all back after the fact. And I've always felt about some footballers in that way. No matter how much you pay for them, no matter how expensive you thought it was at that time, when they're brilliant for you and they become almost indispensable to your team, it's a case of, I reckon now, if Chelsea fans were dealt with, the only way you can keep Caicedo at your club, the new rulers come in, you've got to pay another 80 million today to Brighton for him. I think every Chelsea fan will go, get it done. Just get it done now. They wouldn't be without him. So I think the value of, in the first instance, you may go, that's overpriced. That's too much money. But if that player comes in and delivers, if that player becomes consistent, if that person becomes a linchpin to your side and you get to where you want to be, you start winning trophies. Then when you go back and look at the price, you start saying, that was cheap. I know for a fact that not one single Liverpool fan thinks that Alisson or Van Dijk were expensive signings anymore. They were cheap. For what they have got, they were cheap. So I do get your point that 130 million sounds excessive. And I was using that as a little bit. I wouldn't, maybe if you get into negotiations, you bring that down a little bit. The point being, if you are sure on a player, if you're building a system and you get these deals right, in the future, you'll look back at it and go, it was worth the money. And if it's worth the money, then it's not expensive. In life, people often only say no to things for two reasons. One, they can't afford it. It's too expensive. Or two, and normally most of the time this is the case in the modern day world, because the salesperson didn't make you realize how much you needed it. And if you can afford it and you need it, you typically buy it. So, yeah, I wouldn't say we should walk away necessarily, but there we go. Please get Lammens ASAP. Yeah, I'm so excited about getting a new goalkeeper. We spoke about this yesterday morning, and I stand on this 100%. I just love the fact that it's a bit of an out there deal, not an obvious deal, not a player that everybody's been falling over. What I'm hopeful of is that we've got him before the hype. Man United have not done that for a long time, where we sign a player before the hype. Lenny Yoro slightly, but as soon as Real Madrid were interested, everyone started talking about his name. Maybe you could put Aiden Heaven into that. Look very talented. Dorgu could be somebody that we look at and could be that player. I didn't know his name until we were linked with him, to be honest. But maybe this, and again, he's starting to look really good this season. I'm excited to watch him today play again. Let's go to some more of your comments that have come through here. We have a member chat. Terry, where do you get the shirt from? I don't know. It was bought for me. I don't really buy my clothes. I just say I need this, and then it gets bought. I give them the money, it gets bought. I don't really do the shopping myself. This here says, I'm selling Caicedo in that scenario. We're very good at scouting midfielders. Maybe, but there's always a risk that the next guy isn't as good. When they're already established and you know they're delivering, it's that, would you take it away when there's no guarantees that the next person's going to be as good, or would you pay extra money to keep them? But you do know that you do that, but you just do it in a way that you don't realize. You are aware of that, right? Maybe not 80 million more, but let's just give you an example where you will pay more for Caicedo in the future. And if he's really good and he's brilliant and he's indispensable, and you look at him as absolutely amazing, he's currently earning 7.8 million pound a year at Chelsea, which is a good amount of salary. Okay, that's on I don't know how long that deal is. To be fair, that's that's for another 6 years. He would have been there 2 years. So that investment into him, so 6 plus 2. 8. That's 8 years. So that was a 62 million pound investment into his salary. But let's say in another year's time, you've got big clubs that now want him, other big clubs that now want him, and they're offering him 250, 300k a week. You're then going to look at that as a club and say, well, we need to make a decision here. Do we increase that 62 million pound investment, and do we double it to 120 million? So then suddenly, instead of him costing you another, what you owe on him in terms of his salary, what you owe for him still is coming. That's for the next 6 years. So you owe 40. Like, you've got 46 million pound of salary still owed to him. So you may look at that and go, well, he wants a pay increase. Oh, what does he want a pay increase to? Well, he wants 300k a week because he's become the best DM in the world, as many Chelsea fans call him, and Real Madrid want him, and Barcelona want him, and Bayern Munich want him, and everybody wants him, and they're all offering him that kind of money. Oh, okay, well, what is that going to cost us over the next, say, 6 years? And you go, well, if we look at doing a new 6-year deal from this point, you look at it and go, well, let's times that by 52. So now you're looking at, sorry, my maths is off there massively. Sorry, 300, my calculator, sorry. So now you're looking at a commitment of 15 million per year. You times that over a 6 year, but wow, that's 93 million pound. You minus the 46 that we already spoke about as an example. It's now going to cost you 47 million pounds more to keep him at your club. So you know the point I made, that would you pay the extra 80 million to keep him? That was an exaggerated point. That was an exaggerated amount. But what you've got to add, that's nearly 50 million plus new bonuses. So every bonus then goes up. So now suddenly, if you win games, if you win trophies, if you qualify for Champions Leagues, you're probably looking at another additional 10 million pound on top of what he's currently getting in those bonuses. Plus, his agent is going to want to cut in a fee. And rarely now do the players pay the agents, the clubs do. So now suddenly there's an extra 7.5 million pounds in fees to an agent. So you're now at 65 million pounds. So when a player is worth it, it doesn't matter how much they've cost you in the past. If they're delivering for your team, most of us advocate for renewing those contracts. You might not. You may think, bro, you may go, do you know what? I'd rather just get rid of him. I think we can scout someone better. That's fair enough. But for me, most people want to renew when they've got something that is working, when they've got something they think will continue to work. If Savio goes, City will have Rodrygo lined up. Flaws, I agree with you. I think if they let him go, it's because they've got a player like him lined up. I don't think they let Savinho go without having a replacement that they're almost guaranteed to get. I just don't think they would do it. You know, I really, really do not think they would do it. Thank you, Rob, for encouraging everybody to hit the like button this morning. Right, Terry, I'm putting an end to the working class Povo claim. You've got a house with a pool, and you're letting us know you've got personal shoppers. I don't have a personal shopper. I have family that do things for me. Do you know what I mean? Same as I do things, because I do the food shopping in my house because I quite like doing it. So everyone lets me know what they want, and then I get it. Other people do clothes shopping in my house. So it's like, well, I need a new pair of these, I need a new pair of them. These are my sizes. And then it's just there. I pay for it in sport. I'm not a personal shopper. And I am working class, and I come from a Povo background. just because, you know, I did very well. I did well at work, and the channel, you know, you guys make my channel great. And I've got a little house. Doesn't mean I'm not working class. You don't, I'm not changing. Yeah, you know what I mean? You have food. Yeah, I eat food. Yeah. I know you were joking, Ian. I know you were joking, bro. Don't know. Terry walks into Selfridges, goes up to the private shopper and says, "Close now, chop chop." No, I would never. Do you know what? I don't know. Even if I became a billionaire, I don't know if I could hire anyone to do any kind of job like that for me. That's where my work. When I've been away to some all-inclusive holidays, and you know, like, I got this guy in trouble, and I felt I gave him maybe the biggest individual tip I've given another human being ever. There was a jug of water on the station, and I just wanted to bring it to my table. I see everybody calling over waiters and can you get me that jug of water that was 3 foot away? I don't care if it's all inclusive. I don't care. I couldn't do it. I couldn't call someone to walk 30 yards to me to make them walk 3 yards to a jug of water to bring me. I got up and got the jug of water and put it on my own table. I saw this supervisor take him aside, and I could see him in a distance, like reprimanding him for me. And he came over and he apologized. And I'm really, the waiter said, "I'm really sorry that you had to get up and do that." And I went, "Sorry, supervisor." And I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, it's a standard we have to uphold because most people expect it." So I understand that. I said, I felt so embarrassed. I gave him a tip. So yeah, I couldn't hire people to do things like that for me. I could hire a gardener because I'm not very good at gardening. And if the garden was really big, if I was a billionaire, you probably have to have gardeners. You couldn't do it yourself. But like personal shoppers and all of that, no, couldn't do it. Hey Terry, do you want who do you want to watch MVP fight next? Adesanya. Him and Adesanya are friends, so I wouldn't necessarily want to see that fight because they're close. I don't know, you know. I don't know who I'd like to see. I haven't actually spent any time thinking about it because it all depends on what weight category he's going to fight in. So is he going to fight in welterweight or is he going to fight in middleweight is the question. So he's ranked 10 in middleweights because obviously he just beat Jared Cannonier. But where's he ranked? Is he not ranked in? So he's not ranked in the welterweight category anymore, which is crazy. He should be because he was. I mean, look, if he stays in middleweight, looking at that list, like Robert Whittaker could be a good fight. You've got, I mean, Israel Adesanya could be one. I wouldn't mind. Do you know what? Because it would be a good stand-up fight. Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland would be a really good fight at that weight category. I think he'd bust up Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland wouldn't be able to get near him. If he drops down a weight category, I wouldn't mind seeing him mess up Kobe Covington, which would be a good fight. Who else? Leon Edwards would be a decent fight as well at the next category down. Again, I'm just looking at the next, like I say, weight category down as an example. Gilbert Burns would be a good fight. But again, if he goes for Sean, this is what he does. If he goes for Sean Strickland and beats him, then he goes, but I just wouldn't want to see him fight Chimaev. I don't want to, that was my friend. I don't want to see him do that. Although I back him, I don't want to see him do it. That would worry me, that fight, because that man's a bear, bro. He's a bear. But there we go. Terry. No, I don't order kegs. But there we go. Is it just me, or does Liverpool's window all of a sudden look quite poor? No, it doesn't look quite poor. But what you're doing is everybody else has caught them up. So they started fast by bringing players in, and now Arsenal have kind of caught them up. If City end up with Donnarumma and Savio, they've caught them up. You know, if Man United ended up with a new goalie and that Baleba thing happened, you'd still probably say Liverpool's is better, but you'd look at United's and go, it can compete. So they started fast, but everybody else is kind of catching up in that regard now, and I think that plays an important component in that. Terry has a butler and a whole Downton Abbey staff. Yeah, exactly. You're right. That's true. let's have a little look here at some of your comments. Bruno only leaves when he wants to. Man United stance. Yeah, maybe. Arsenal signing more players without selling anyone. Arteta's spending fortunes. But that's because not all clubs have to. All clubs would try and have it part of their revenue streams, but some clubs make more money through other areas. And this is why net spend is just a banal and very inaccurate way of looking at the expenditure. We saw Alan Shearer, a man who I respect, a player that I respect, last night talk about how I goes, I don't understand. PSR's wrong. Villa have made £10 million profit in transfers in the last 3 years over the last 6 windows, and now they can't spend. Well, they've spent last season alone, they spent 94% of all their income on player salaries. So you couple into what they actually spent on the transfers, you look at all the other expenditure that the football club has. And we can look at this because if we go to Deloitte's like Football Money League, right? This stuff's well documented. I'm not sure if they're in the top 20 teams. Let me just see if they are. Because if they're in the top 20 teams, then are they in the top 20 teams? Yeah, they are. This is what's crazy, right? So they come in at number 18, and they're this is for 2024. Okay, they had 310 million in revenue came in. They're not a very big club. Okay, of that, right? This isn't the part I was looking for, actually. Where is the element of expenditure? Why doesn't it show? This isn't the page I wanted, because there is a... Let me try and find this, people. I'm very sorry. Or maybe they've changed it now. Maybe they don't show. They used to show the breakdown of what clubs spend on. No, they do. They do. I'm just an idiot. I missed it. Here it is. So, yeah. This is what I heard from fucking Villa fans, right? Terry's wrong information. I'm trusting Deloitte. So in the last 5 years, this is crazy. So you go back to 2020 until now, okay? So their revenue has gone up from 131.2 million to 310 million. That is through qualifying for Europe, getting higher placed in the Premier League. That have increased their revenue, which actually is crazy because what they have done is more than double their revenue over the space of 5 years. So they've got, if they keep doing that, that's when they can start spending more. But in that time, in 2020, they spent 94% of their income was spent on salary. In 2021, 75% of their income was spent on salary. In 2022, they spent 77%. In 2023, they spent 94%. And in 2024, they spent 96% of their salary. You divide that over a 5-year period, they on average have spent 87% of their income just on the salaries. That doesn't include, the expenditure on transfers, agent fees, etc. If you spend 96% of your £310 million income on on if we then just go and look, for instance, and by the way, that income includes player sales. So this is why net spend is irrelevant, because you'll then go, I'll do this. I'll go all Villa. Let's go to all of Aston Villa's transfers, right? And then people start going, yeah, but they sold players too, Terry. That's included in the revenue. So last season, as an example, last season be the wrong year because that hasn't fitted. You have to go back to the previous season, right? Because they sold £257 million worth of players last year. So some will say, well, how can their turnover only be 310? That's because they haven't done next season's yet. However, the year before, they spent £111 million. So if you're spending £111 million on players, plus you only made 300 million in turnover. That includes player sales, and 96% of that was spent on the salary. Where do you think all the expense? Now, you don't spend all that money on players straight away. You amortize it. But this is what's happened. The money they started spending in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Yes, it's only costing 30 million year one, Terry, because we're amortizing it. Yes, but that's 30 million a year for the next 5 years. If the next summer you add another 25 million, if the next summer you add another 25 million, if the next summer you add 80 million, and then the next summer you add 45 million, the next summer you add 30 million, but then you minus the other 30 million off. You're then looking at payments of 130, 140 million pound a year. 140 million pound a year plus, let's do the math on this, okay? 310 million minus 96%, okay? That means you're left with around 12 million pound, but you've got 143 million pounds worth of players to pay for. And they're like, oh, Jerry, but how come you can spend? You're in more debt than us because we have more money than you. If I earn £10,000 a month after tax and you earn £5,000 a month after tax, but we both have the same mortgage and the mortgage is £4,900. And people go, it ain't fair. I'll pay the same mortgage as Terry. Terry has the same debt. In fact, Terry's mortgage is bigger than mine. Terry's got even more debt than me, but he's still got spare cash to buy a new car and to go on holiday. Yes, because I earn more than you. So Villa have spent, okay, of all their revenue. This is what's crazy, right? Forget transfers. We've just worked out that what they've spent on transfers. Actually, let's do it properly. Let's break this down for real, okay? So let's do those same periods. Let's look at the cash they've spent on players in that time. Okay, so 1920, they spent 159 million. Year after that, they spent 101 million. We'll get the exact numbers for you here. Plus 129 million. This is just base, not including the add-ons. Plus 113 million. Plus 111 million. Okay, so in that period, okay, divide that by 5. So now what we're going to do is 613 million. So we'll convert that into euros. Okay, so let's do euros into pounds because it's important to do this. So 613, that's 500. So we'll put it into pounds. 531 million spent in that time. Let's divide it by 5 because we're going to amortize each over 5 years. That means they're paying about £106 per month. Sorry, per year on those players, on the players. So let's do the math on this. And by the way, they haven't earned 310 million every year. It was mainly in the 200s for 3 of those 5 years. Okay, so let's all just remember that number. I'm going to write it down: 106 million ballpark every year in player salary. So their turnover was 132 million, 207, 211, 244, and 310 in that same period. So they turn over 1.1 billion in 5 years. They turn over that's 900. Okay, I'll write it down again. 956 million. To give an example, City turned that over in a year once. Why can City spend and we can't? Because they grew their revenue over time. Let's divide that by let's do an average here. Average over 5 years. Okay, that means their revenue on average has been 220 million on average over that 5-year period. Okay, so they're spending okay, 106 million pound of that a year on players because they bought them and they've got to pay them off over 5 years, which leaves them 114 million of that turnover left to spend. But of that 220 million turnover, we know they're spending on average 87% of it on salaries of players. Okay, so that means 191 million pound is gone. So again, let's do the basics on this. 220 million minus 191 million in salaries minus the 106 million a year for the payments for the players. They're already losing 77 million pound per year. They're losing 77 million pounds per year. And that doesn't include then on top of that, all the other expenditures, infrastructure, the women's team, the youth team investments. Now, none of that impacts you on PSR, but they're still losing the money as a business. Okay. You've then got player bonuses, agent fees, and even more to factor in that I'm not even talking legal costs, admin costs, accountants fees, bookkeeping fees. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. You know, they're probably spending millions a year on legal fees. Small businesses like mine spend 10 grand a year. So I can imagine what theirs are doing, right? So at the end of the day, when they go, PSR is just ruining football. No, it isn't. PSR is stopping you from potential Armageddon. Now, imagine this. Imagine Villa's owners turn around. Now, we've done the numbers already. Organically, they've gone from 132 million to 310 million a year in revenue. The big jump is mainly because they've got into the Champions League. But if you qualify every year, you will start getting better commercial deals and the TV money goes. But you're not going to double it every few years because the TV revenue money is relatively the same. Does that make sense? The big doubling is because you're now in the Champions League, but they're out of it again already. But let's just say in that 5-year period, PSR didn't exist and they could spend even more. So let's do the math on this, right? Let's say they could spend just double. So now what it is, let's just do the double. Let's treble it because their owners, they talk about letting their owners go big. So now they owe 306 million a year in fees for players for 5 years. Let's say their wage bill, we already know their current wage bill is about on average 191 million pound a year because it's the percentage of their turnover. Let's treble that as well. So now their wage bill is 573 million pounds a year, but their turnover, okay, let's just put it at the maximum that they've had, 310 million. 310 million is their max turnover, okay? Let's do the math on that. So that means every year, this minus the salaries and minus the player costs every year, because they're spending like crazy to get there. It now means they're losing in a year over 500 million pounds a year. They're losing 500 million pounds per year. You add that debt up because it is a debt, okay? Because they've got to pay it every year for the next 5 years. That is a debt of 897 million pound a year over 5 years. That means they're putting the club in 4.3 billion pound of debt. Why is it debt? Actually, no, that's actually not strictly true. I'm going to be fairer because they do have their own income. So it's 879. That's minus the 310 maximum the turnover. That means it's 569 million a year in a black hole. And this is the basic numbers. Times that by the 5 years of the contracts and amortization on average, that's a 2.8 billion pound debt. Now, let me just say this again. Imagine there's no PSR and clubs like Villa and clubs like Newcastle and clubs like Forest owners could put them in a continual 2.8 billion pound debt because of the contracts they sign for players, the salaries they throw at players, and the amount of money they can spend. Oh, Terry, it wouldn't be that big. Well, it would. If you look at the volumes of money that Roman was spending and what City was spending in the early days on agent fees, salaries, and players, the inflation in football's gone to another level. What 70 million pounds bought you 20 years ago? In fact, the best players in the world weren't even costing you 70 million pounds in 2004. That was more 50 odd million. Now, average players are costing 50 million. So you can see why the numbers would grow. Imagine what happens when all these players are bought and there's 2.8 to 3 billion pound being owed to clubs and to players on contracts that you cannot get out of. What happens if one of those owners' countries gets sanctioned? What happens if one of those owners die? What happens if one of those owners gets bored? We saw clubs like West Ham nearly go out of business over 50 million, 60 million pound of debt because their owners lost their money because of a fucking volcano. Imagine the stupidity. And people can say it's an extreme example. It's not an extreme example. It's a very realistic example because these owners are saying they're willing to invest. But where is the safety net? The only way around this is if those owners turn around and go, well, what we'll do, we'll put that 2.8 to 3 billion pound in a pot of cash somewhere that the Premier League will keep hold of in case those things happen. But isn't it funny that none of these billionaires have suggested that in Premier League meetings? It's never on the cards. They never try and get a vote on it because none of these guys will, by the way, they'll have to liquidate billions of pounds of assets to get that cash up front and put it into a reserve plus pay it. So it would have to be a reserve. They need 6 billion in cash to do it. They're never going to do that. They're going to leverage it against the football club whilst they want to be here. And what will happen is you'll have some great owners that will never damage the club like Roman and Chelsea. But football is littered with the carcasses of clubs whose owners stopped investing. That was when you were talking tens of millions. The idea this wouldn't happen when it's hundreds of millions and billions is fucking stupid. because these billionaires do it to multiple other businesses and injuries all the time. This idea that we don't need PSR, it's like someone believing that you don't need a seatbelt in a car. Well, I'd brace it. I'll be okay. You're an idiot. It will ruin you. It's crazy, man. I said it before again. To all the Villa fans and the Newcastle fans and the City fans that go, it's there to restrain people. Again, how does City turn over? And I'll tell you what their last trading account said. How a City that got the second biggest turnover in the world of nearly £1 billion if PSR holds you back. And they've got, over the last 5 years, they've gone from 500 to 600 to 700 to 800 to 900 million of turnover a year. How have they done that if they weren't cheating? If PSR holds you back? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Listen, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in to the show this morning. It means a great deal to us that so many of you come through, that so many of you talk to us. We're back live later today for the Manchester United Fulham reaction. So I can't wait to see you guys back for that one. This is going to redirect you to it. So you can go there now and you can like and you can do all that stuff for us. But I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to thank you all for being here with us. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again soon. Peace.